Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about Fences by August Wilson. Now, before I go into summary and analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. All right, Fences, very interesting work here. Lots of things are happening. We have Troy Maxon. He played in Negro leagues. He couldn't play in the major leagues because, he lived in an America where black men were limited. You're facing discrimination. You're looking at just before the civil rights movements in the 1960s. So this is a man that was growing, that was alive, and trying to build a life for himself right before civil rights. So his kids and him, they experienced a different world. He experienced a world of segregation. He experienced a world where black people were kept from accessing certain places. So Troy Maxon, his mentality, his character is very different from what his kids were experiencing um, when they were growing up. Now, Troy Maxon, he's the breadwinner of the family. He makes the money. He's a trash man. A sanitation worker. He had his time in the Negro Leagues, but he was limited. He could have gone farther in life, but because of the America that he lived in, a lot of things were shut down in his face. And so he built a lot of fences around himself emotionally, and a lot of men in that era. Think about men in the 1940s and 1950s, and even men before then. Um, you lived in a world where if you were black, you could probably go to school and maybe get a practical job. Think about the job that Troy Maxon is working. He's working in trash collection. So men, black men at that time period, you weren't thinking about going to college and becoming, businessmen and obtaining high positions in society. You had practical work. You try to build a family and you try to exist. You weren't thinking about being a superstar, or something, revolutionary. You just wanted to make it by. Troy Wilson, he that was his mentality. He was emotionally, he was not there. He tried to be that breadwinner, but the thing's like, even with him being the breadwinner, it's not really as rock solid as you would think, because Gabriel, his brother, who's with them, um, his disability checks, because he went to war, World War II. There's a metal plate in his head. He thinks he has these mental situations, these mental episodes where he thinks he's the angel Gabriel, and he often has a trumpet with him. His disability checks helps out the family financially, so it's not like Troy Maxon is like supporting the family 100% on his own. So even though that he prides himself on, I need to be the breadwinner, I need to support this family, I'm putting food on the table, I'm putting clothes on these kids' backs. Um, it's not 100% on himself. It's like his brother's also supporting the family in a way, even though that the family is helping out the brother because he has disabilities. At the same way, the disabled brother is supporting them, helping them out too. So that's a very complex thing right there. There's a lot to think about there. Um, Jordan Maxon, he's not a good guy, man. He's just not a good guy. He has three kids, Lions, Corey, and his daughter, and uh, they're from, each of them are from different women. All right. Now the daughter here, she's her own character, but I really want to talk about her in this way. She's used within display for us to understand who Troy is in a very deep way. And what I mean by that is, Troy Maxon, although he's this man, he's this hammer within the family. He's gonna shape the family. He's gonna tell you what to do. He knows what's best. He knows what's right. But this man, he has a lot of bad choices, a lot of bad decisions. He cheats on his wife. Rose has to take care of this daughter, and she knows that Troy, you know, cheated on her, and now she has to take care of this kid. And she's deeply hurt, but she decides to take care of this daughter. That's not her daughter; it's Troy's daughter. So Rose is another character that is, she's very strong and she sacrifices a lot, but she still decides to take care of this daughter that was had by Troy, not by her. And Troy, again, three baby mamas. Let's just be completely honest and open here. Three kids, three baby mamas. Um, his brother is helping out with the support for the family. Um, because Gabriel, his disability checks are helping out. He's not that supportive emotionally. He's not a great father emotionally. He's not a great husband. And yet he demands people to follow his rules. So, if he was supporting the family 100%, paying all the bills, everything was on his own, and he had a great track record with life and making right decisions and good decisions, we would understand where he's coming from. But he's not a great character. He's not a great act to follow. Corey gets into a fight with him. Corey gets kicked out of the house. He goes and joins the Marines. Lions, he's like an aspiring, musician. He doesn't really end up well within the work. All the kids have problems, and in terms of dealing with the father or growing up with the father, with Troy, they all get this type of trauma from this father because the father's stuck in the past. He has this disillusionment. He believes that the society in which he lives in is never going to be helpful towards him or be good towards him, and he tries to navigate the lives of his kids in the same way by telling his kids, listen, don't follow these people, don't aim for the sky, because this dominant culture is going to knock you down. Get a practical job, earn your money and keep your head down. But these kids, they're this is the 1960s now. They're the new generation. Think about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and civil rights. So these kids, they're not gonna keep their head down. It's a changing America. It's a changing landscapes, and they're gonna look for opportunity and a better life and success for themselves. And this is where you get the clash. And this is why Corey and um, Troy have their fight. Okay, um, and so Troy dies. Corey does come to the funeral, and he seems to be, in a way, maybe doing better than his father because he does attend the funeral. He doesn't, end up going to college and pursuing football. And there's that resentment because his father, it wasn't society, it wasn't the dominant culture, it wasn't white people. It was his father. It was his father that kept them from exploring all of his dreams. Because when you're young, when you're a teenager, when you're in 20s, shoot for the skies, shoot for the stars. Try to achieve whatever you can achieve, whatever dream you have, do it. Because then if you fail, when you're in your 60s and your 70s, at least you can say, well, at least I didn't try, okay? That's one thing I have to say about life. Try to reach your dreams. If you reach them, great, fantastic. If you don't, you don't. At least you can, at the end of the day, or at the end of your life, you can be like, well, at least I tried, all right? At least I tried to achieve them. Because it's better to try and fail, at least from my perspective. I think it's better to try and fail rather to never try at all. Okay, you have dreams, you have aspirations, reach for them. If it didn't work, at least you can tell yourself, I tried. I tried my best. I went out there. I stood 10 toes down. I tried to reach my goals. And if you didn't make it, you didn't make it. You have one life to live. Don't just hide in the shadows. Don't just hide under your bed. You do what you can to reach your goals. But Troy, he was telling his kids, no, don't do that. Get a, do what's basic, do what's reliable, what's stable. I mean, that's great. Okay, I understand that there's some comfort in that, but again, if it doesn't work in your teens and your 20s and your 30s, okay, then later in life you could be like, all right, I'll be more, traditional and get a job and live life. But when you're young, when you're in your youth, um this is why there's so many clashes with his kids and the father, because he was not supportive of their dreams. And listen, when you have dreams and you don't try to pursue them, they will eat at you when you're older. You're like, man, I wish I should have done this, or I wish I should have done that. So by the end of the work, Troy does die, and the family has to move on, and they move on and they reflect on what the father was, um, what effect it had on them, the trauma that they had to go through, and how it was, the effect it had on them. Because, Troy was like a hammer that just kept on hammering nails down, and these kids had to survive their own father. In terms of deeper meaning analysis, I mean, everybody in this work has fences, emotional fences. There's a lot of emotional fences. There's also a physical fence that Troy and Corey they were building around their property. So I mean, if we go into the analysis here, there's a lot of fences that we have to take a look at. The emotional fences are quite a lot. Troy has these fences that he always kept around himself to protect himself. Society had burned him, lost opportunities, dreams that he didn't accomplish. All of that made him into a tough man with a tough emotional fence around himself to protect himself, even from his own kids and family. Even to the type of advice that he was giving, he just wasn't a man, filled with hope. He was, very bitter, and he was boiled hard in his ways, and he wasn't going to change. Um, Rose wanted a fence for the family to stick together, but that wasn't necessarily the case. And herself, I mean, she's a very strong woman, and she had to have a strong foundation to keep going with this relationship and take care of Troy's daughter, even though she found out that he had a daughter without her. That's some hard emotional things to swallow. It's not easy to take that in. So this black family is just there's so many layers in it, in terms of finances, in terms of feelings, in terms of emotions, in terms of how they each impact each other, in terms of resentment, in terms of growth, in terms of how parents affect children. And yes, depending on your parents, their upbringing, and their experience with life, it will certainly affect your outcome and how you're raised and what type of person you become. Because your parents, I guarantee you, they're the hammer that shape who you are. They're the tools in life that shape who you become. If you're rebellious, if you're not, if you're nice, if you're not, I'm telling you, the type of upbringing, the type of parents you get in this world shape your character. And it takes a lot for people to, um, you know, not become their parents, because a lot of times parents try to turn you into themselves because they try to shape your life the way that they want you to be. So this work, there's definitely a lot of fences, like the title. Um, the fences are just there's just multiple, from the physical to the emotional to the spiritual, to the societal. Because again, I mean, we can even talk about the societal fences for Troy, because society just kept him out. Because there's so many things he could have done with his life, but he couldn't because of his race. So very interesting work here. That's all I have to say about it. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.